My sister-in-law tried to deliberately ruin what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. But karma is a bitch, and she got exactly what she deserved. I still haven't forgiven her for being the petty little child she is, though, and she hates me and somehow blames me for something that is entirely, unquestionably her fault. My husband refuses to directly say anything to her because he feels bad for her, and I'm just so sick and tired of everything and really need to vent. To give some background, my sister-in-law, Alice, had been engaged for 2 years to Mike and was always vocal about wanting to start a family and getting married. Mike is a decent guy as far as I can tell, but I honestly don't understand why they were together. They dated for 6 years and have been estranged for two, but we have heard basically zero wedding talk from either of them apart from the initial hype for a short period after the engagement. I've been with my husband for almost 3 years now, and as long as I have seen Alice and Mike, I have never understood their relationship dynamic. They basically have no shared interests. She is often cold and passive aggressive to him for no reason, and the whole relationship just doesn't make sense to me. My husband used to say that they've been together for so long that they feel stuck together. I think the reason Alice never really warmed up to me is because my husband and I have always been really happy together, and our relationship has been wonderful, unlike hers. The rest of his family have been really nice to me, but Alice has just sort of tried to one up everything I do and downplay all our relationship milestones. When my husband proposed to me on our first dating anniversary, she was pretty dismissive about it and even told him that he might regret rushing into marriage with someone he doesn't know very well. Back to the wedding now. My husband and I decided to tie the knot in a small ceremony with close family and friends. We didn't want anything too extravagant, but we still put a lot of effort into making it a memorable day. The decor and everything else was exactly how I had always dreamt my wedding day would be like, and it was honestly perfect. The ceremony went smoothly, and we were both overjoyed to finally be married. The reception started great too, with everyone enjoying the food and the open bar, which was the one thing we splurged on. My husband and I had just finished our first dance when my sister-in-law tapped me on the shoulder. She had a huge smile on her face and said, "I have some news to share with everyone." I was taken aback, but I hoped it was going to be something positive, like she had a surprise for us or something of that sort. But that was extremely stupid of me. Looking back, I realized that hoping anything good would come out of my sister-in-law's mouth would be positive towards me was just stupid. She gathered everyone's attention and said that she had happy news to share. As soon as she started talking, I could tell that it was something else entirely, and that she was going to pull some crazy antic. "I'm pregnant," she announced, holding up a pregnancy test. At first, I didn't know how to react. I was happy for her, of course, but I couldn't believe she had chosen this moment to make the announcement. It was clear that she was trying to upstage my wedding and steal the spotlight. My husband noticed my discomfort and tried to diffuse the situation, congratulating his sister and trying to make light of it, but I could tell that he was also upset about what had happened. But it was what Mike did next that truly turned the event into a disaster, both for me and my husband, but particularly for Alice herself. He was drinking near the bar when Alice made the announcement, which was odd in itself. But I just ignored it because what could anyone even expect from those two? But I also noticed that after the announcement, she went up to him and they went to a corner and it was clear that they were arguing. I tried to get my husband to intervene before things escalated, but he didn't want to step between them and potentially make things worse. We both spent the next 15 minutes trying to distract our guests while Alice and Mike's argument became visibly worse. As I've mentioned before, it was a small ceremony and there weren't many people invited in the first place. Among the people who were invited, almost everyone knew both of them, so the whole thing was hard to ignore. And pretty much everyone got uncomfortable. Things reached their peak when, after around half an hour of them arguing, Mike loudly said that he was done with this crazy shit, and loudly announced to everyone that he had something to say. Meanwhile, Alice was frantically trying to stop him. I braced myself for whatever was about to happen. Mike directly came up to me and said that he owed me an apology because of Alice. I asked him what he meant, and he said that Alice wasn't pregnant, and if she was, it wasn't his because they had been sleeping in separate beds for the last 5 months, and she probably just made up this crazy story because she was jealous of all the attention I've been getting. It was clear that he was more than a little drunk, and my husband tried to stop him, but he wouldn't budge. By then, Alice was crying and almost screaming at that point, saying he was lying, and Mike took one look at her and said that he was done. He said he's over her constant drama and her obsession with me, and that they're over. He left before anyone could say anything. The rest of the night was awkward, to say the least. We tried to put on a brave face and continue with the celebrations, but I couldn't help feeling like my special day had been ruined. I had always dreamed of having a perfect wedding, and now it felt like a distant memory. Alice was completely inconsolable, and we ended the party like 2 hours before it was supposed to end because everyone was super uncomfortable. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not a complete monster, and I do feel bad for Alice about how things turned out. Mike has moved out of their house, even though she begged him to stay, and even suggested couples therapy. And she has been living with my in-laws because she doesn't want to be by herself. But a small part of me can't help but feel satisfied with how things turned out. I feel like, in a way, she deserves it for constantly belittling me throughout the years. The least she could do is to not ruin my wedding day. Update 1. I honestly thought this would be a one-time rant post, but some very interesting things happened that I gotta tell you guys. So, my wedding was a week ago, and I posted 2 days after the ceremony. Last night, Alice reached out to me out of nowhere, saying that I gotta talk to Mike and let him know that I forgive her and that we never had any drama between us. I was completely bewildered at this and asked her why, and she said that Mike thought she was obsessed with me and tried to make their relationship like me and my husband's, and if I tell him that's not true, he might consider getting back with her. I told her that I needed some time to think about it, and she had a full-blown meltdown, saying that it was selfish of me to not agree instantly because it can save her relationship. I told her that I didn't even say no and just needed some time to think, but she wouldn't listen to me. I lost my temper as well and told her that maybe Mike was right after all and hung up on her. She has been bombarding me with texts and calls. The tone switches from angry to straight up crazy. She has also been trying to guilt trip my husband into making me agree. My husband thinks I should just get it over with and agree to talk to Mike just to get Alice off our backs. Honestly, I might have considered it, even if I don't think it's a good idea, if she had asked nicely, but her behavior is just annoying. Also, I actually haven't forgiven her for ruining my wedding day, and don't think I owe her anything. Update 2. Thanks for all your responses. It's a huge relief to know that a lot of people agree that I don't have to help Alice if I don't want to. Also, some of you asked why my opinion would even matter to Mike. Honestly, I don't think it will because the man has clearly had enough of her BS. But I guess she is grasping at straws and convincing herself that my intervening will give her a chance to redeem herself. I had pretty much decided not to agree in the first place, but after reading so many supportive comments, I'm sure now. I've told my husband about my decision. I don't think he's happy about it because he cares for my sister and feels bad for her, but he is overall supportive and says that I should do what feels right to me. I haven't told Alice yet. I've just been dodging her texts, but I do plan on telling her tonight. I pretty much know how that conversation will go, but I'm just hoping she doesn't throw a huge tantrum. Update 3. Alice is threatening to cut my husband and me off if I refuse to help her. My in-laws refuse to take part in any of this and say that the three of us should sort it out. My husband says she is just being dramatic and that it's all right if I stick to my decision, so that's what I will do. Thanks for reading along. I appreciate you guys. NTA, this woman has done nothing but give you the cold shoulder consistently for years and expects you to somehow save her relationship after sabotaging it herself with this weird fixation with you. Honestly, she sounds like she needs therapy. Good for her fiancé to get out of it while he could, and good for you for sticking to your decision. ESH. I don't care if anyone else agrees with me. Is your sister-in-law a massive a-hole for doing what she is? Definitely, she is. But you could have just spoken to her ex once. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? He would say no and your sister-in-law would have calmed down. You're both being childish, in my opinion. Next story. 6 years ago, I lost my husband. We were childhood sweethearts who married while in college and had 2 children together. His death was sudden and unexpected and came through as the result of an undiagnosed heart condition. I have not had an interest in dating since my husband, or to remarry. This is not what normally happens in our family. My grandpa died when my dad was a baby, and my grandma remarried within a year. An aunt lost her husband and remarried within 2 years, and an uncle was the same. A couple of months ago, my cousin remarried 18 months after his wife died. This is seen as the best way, the only way to move forward healthily, especially when you have minor children who need a second parent. I disagree, and I have not engaged beyond my initial. I will decide if and when I want to date again, but the last 4 months have been worse. They attempted to find me a man, brought random men to meet me during family gatherings and thought we'd hit it off. It didn't happen. They told me my kids had lost out on the important years of having a father present, and I had done them a disservice by allowing them to reach an age where rejecting a new parent is 10 times more likely. I told them I had not once thought of replacing their dad for them and was not setting out in life just to find them a new dad. They told me that's not what our family members did before me. But what they did was make sure they were never missing that second parental figure. Then tried to tell me I could give them another mom if I didn't want another husband. But it's not healthy to stay single. I told them to mind their own business and leave it alone because I don't want to hear it every time I see or speak to them. They said I was being rude and unreasonable and clearly didn't want to listen, so I left with my kids. They said I was taking their concern and throwing it back in their faces, which wasn't fair of me. AITA? NTA. With minor children, it's important that they have strong role models of different genders in their life, but nothing says that has to be their parent's spouse. I'm assuming you're female. Forgive me if I'm wrong. So you'd want to make sure they had steady, active male presences in their life in addition to your strong presence. But that can take so many forms. Uncles, grandfathers, close male friends of the family or of yours. A big brother, big sisters, foundation buddy, a scoutmaster, etc., etc. If you're somebody in a place where you want another romantic partner, that's great. If you never are, then good for you for knowing yourself and trusting your own knowledge of yourself and your needs. In this day and age, there's no need to marry a second partner for the child's sake. That was only remotely needed back when it was basically impossible for a single parent to keep a child housed and cared for. One of the advantages of modern conveniences is that they give us options and more ways to live happy, healthy lives than our ancestors did. Pushing potential partners at you is tasteless and rude. The only time when this kind of matchmaking is cool is when someone literally asks for it, as in tells their family that they want them to bring potential partners around like yours is doing. The fact that your other family members remarried quickly is irrelevant. It's not what you want or need, so they need to lay off. NTA, your family is completely out of line, and I'm so sorry that you have to go through while dealing with the loss of your husband. Your decision when, whether or not to date after that should be your choice, and it's nobody else's business. Next story. Last summer, my brother's wife left him. He initially tried to hide the reason why, but as it turns out, He had been abusing her, and she finally left him over his treatment of her oldest son. They have 4 children together, 8 male, 5 female, 4 female, 0 male. And she has an older son, 16 male. After finding out the reason for separation, my sister and I no longer have a relationship with our brother. My dad and brother couldn't care less to have found out that their brother was abusing his partner and have been painting his ex the one to blame. My mom is having a hard time. My brother has always been her favorite child, and although she has become a lot colder with him, she still has a relationship with him. When sister-in-law left my brother, it was the start of the kids' summer break, and she took them to stay with her dad in a different state. A month later, she gave birth to her youngest child. When my mom found out the baby had been born, she was upset that sister-in-law hadn't contacted her as she had been present for her other kid's birth. When she tried to contact sister-in-law, she couldn't answer her calls and messages. In August, sister-in-law moved back to our city so the kids could return to the same schools. Her and my brother have also sorted out custody, child support, and my brother is only allowed a few hours of supervised visitation a week. Since then, my mom has been smothering sister-in-law. It comes from a good place. She feels guilty about what her son did and wants to support sister-in-law. She's been going to all the kids' events, sports games, taking them out regularly, spoiling them with gifts. I think she spent close to $1,000 on the 16-year-old's birthday, and has been inviting herself over to sister-in-law's house a lot. I know sister-in-law is grateful for the help. I think she finds my mom's presence a bit much. She recently told my mom, while I was present, that she didn't want to see her until spring break, and that afterwards they would sit down and create some boundaries in their relationship and her relationship with the kids. My mom was very upset and called my sister-in-law ungrateful for everything she had done for her and that she would struggle as a single mom without her help. They argued for a while before my mom and I left. In the car, my mom tried to get me on her side, but I told her I agreed with sister-in-law and that she had been smothering her and the kids too much and they needed space. A few days ago, my mom and I got into an argument about it again. My mom tried to defend herself by saying something along the lines of, "It's not my fault, brother abused her." To which I responded that she did hold some blame as she was the one who raised him and arguably helped program his sense of arrogance by favoring him. My mom is now angry at me that I would take sister-in-law's side and overreact about what I said. Even my sister thinks I'm in the wrong. AITA? NTA, it's very possible for acts of generosity to actually be selfish, and it sounds like this is happening here. If your mother were really concerned with your sister-in-law's well-being, she'd be focused on learning how she overstepped, not on why she shouldn't have been rejected. Sister-in-law has a right to set a limit on how much time someone can spend with her and her kids, no matter who that is. NTA to take your sister-in-law's side. It's your sister-in-law's decision, and it should be respected. But you did directly blame your mother for bad parenting. You don't do that to someone you care about, not during an argument and not in a situation when the person is already down and can't change the circumstances anymore. I would apologize to your mother for hurting her feelings and try to find the right moment to express your opinion of possibly what she should have done differently as a parent, and how you think she could change her behavior towards her son to try to modify his behavior towards women. ESH. I was completely with you until you said she raised and programmed him to be an abuser. That's all on him. She was wrong for supporting him afterwards, and she's wrong for smothering your sister-in-law, but she doesn't have to take the blame for an abusive son. That's where you crossed the line, in my opinion. It's just another way of taking some of the blame off him for being an abusive a-hole. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.